Would I be the if I cut out my parents after I move? Would I be the if I cut my parents out of my life? I male 19 live at home with my family. My parents M50 and F45, my brother M26 and my two sisters F15 and F16. My dad is the main provider for my family. He works at a local factory that produces batteries. My mother is a stay-at-home mom and my brother works as a stone mason. My father is a very cold person emotionally. Casually we can talk about movies, TV, comic books, and the like we're old friends. But as soon as I need him as my dad he acts like I can do it myself because I am an adult now. I bought my car by myself, got every job I had by myself, and taught myself how to take care of most of the things a father should teach, like shaving, tying a tie, car repair, etc. He kind of didn't really want to be a part of my life after I became a teenager and grew some independence. My mother is very bipolar in her actions and suffers from severe narcissism. She has fits of complete rage followed by breakdowns of childish proportions. She will say the most hurtful things someone can say to you and then minutes later act like it was not big deal and try and be your friend again. She had no problem not doing anything but sleeping and eating all day and living in filth. Even though she is a stay-at-home mom, the house was cleaner when she went to work. She thinks she's super mom when in reality she is the most mediocre mother I've ever seen. She chooses to stay at home but nothing is ever clean, dishes are always piled sky high, there is never any clean towels for the shower or for the kitchen, and everything else is done by myself or my sisters. My brother is 27 and still lives at home, which by itself isn't a bad thing. Until you take into account that he could be making $45 an hour as a union stonemason and living his best life. The reason he didn't? They told him he had to stop smoking, as he'd be operating heavy machinery. So he chose his addiction over a once-in-a-lifetime choice. His addiction also causes him to steal constantly, especially from me. He took a battery off of one of my drills the second I left my room and acted like he didn't even though I used it the night before and knew exactly where I left it. However, my mother will defend him to the end of the earth, always blaming something or someone else. As a kid I always wanted a picture-perfect family, 2 loving parents and siblings that helped and cared for me, but unfortunately that's not how it happened for me. When I was a kid my parents really never got along. I spent most of my time separating fights between my mom, dad, and brother. When my parents married, my mom had my brother already, as well as my dad having 2 boys, who when they got older went no contact. My parents would constantly argue over money and finances, especially when my mom was forced to stop working. In 2015 my mom fell at work and broke her tailbone. The company failed to salt the parking lot and she slipped and fell straight on her, breaking her tailbone and giving her permanent spinal damage. It took a while, but after a lot of time with the doctor and the court case, she was able to go back to work. However, she wasn't really willing to. Any job that she got didn't last more than a few weeks, with an outlier or 2 which lasted longer, but it was never more than a couple of months. As finances got tighter and tighter the arguments got more and more common and the word divorce was thrown into the air a lot. Both of my parents would vent to me how much they hated the other one, my mother always with delusion of divorce right around the corner. Always talking about her meetings with lawyers which I believe either never happened or she wasn't likely to win due to her injuries and mental state. When I was 13 we moved back to my hometown after moving away 2 years prior. Here's where really hit the fan. On many circumstances I can remember very loud, and sometimes physical between my dad and brother arguments happening. It usually had something to do with my mom spending too much money and my dad being cruel and vindictive to spite her. He would report the cars stolen, remove fuses from her car so it wouldn't start, hide the cars somewhere by parking them far away, lie about her to our families and much more. While my mom would do things such as get restraining orders, get removal orders and have him thrown out of the house, call the police, and also lie to our friends and families. On multiple occasions I came home from school to find officers at my home. One time in particular they barred me from my home until I had to explain to them that I lived there and that I would be going inside to do homework and the such until they figured things out. All this to say I matured pretty quickly and really didn't have the mind for drama, as it's all I dealt with at home. For the short time I did go to a therapist when I was 15 she said that I had a very advanced understanding of my emotions as a teenager, and she herself took note of the mental maturity I had to have to deal with the situations as I did. But like most things my parents came in and ruined that too, as they took me out of her sessions because she wasn't a good fit even though I really liked her. Like I believed at the time, It later came out that my dad didn't want to pay for it, which I found odd because they have good insurance and they see a marriage counselor at the same office. I never went back to a therapist even after multiple attempts for them to bring me. I consider them both to be narcissists. They care only for themselves and their images. My mom is still under the pathetic belief that we are a happy family, while my dad doesn't really believe in mental health. He believes that as long as there is food, shelter, and clothes on your back you should nt complain. But he always finds something to complain about himself. Honestly, with how my mother is, I don't blame him, but it is his fault all the same. For most of our life we live in filth. Dishes piled high, trash on the floors and counters, unswept and not vacuumed floors, unwashed clothes everywhere. While I am old enough now to do most of my own cleaning, they sure as hell don't do theirs. I do all my own cooking and laundry. I haven't asked a thing from them since they started to implying they want me out. I have been looking for an apartment with my coworker and close friend Josh. Josh lives in a similar situation as me, and also wants out of his home. We've been looking locally for apartments, but as we're both part-time, it's been difficult. Now as I am becoming more and more independent from them, I can't stand them. My mother in her delusions thinks that she is the only woman who can love me. I've been with my girlfriend since our junior year of high school and we are entering our 3rd year of dating. Our 2nd anniversary just passed about a month ago. She has been a big help in realizing just how fucked up my life is. She comes from a really kind and sweet family that has always taken care of her, so most of my problems are foreign to her. She never experienced hungry nights without dinner due to neglectful parents or loud rage-induced arguments. It took a long time before she saw the severity of these altercations. Slowly she saw the problems I was facing as we got more serious and involved with each other's lives. This all came to a spearhead within the last month or so. My dad keeps telling me I have to move out if I don't agree with how he runs his home. Which I have been trying to figure out. However, I am in school and they have screwed me financially with that. The only reason I could afford school in the first place was because during one of my parents' many separations, I was able to file under my mother for financial aid and got a near full ride at my local community college. Even though my parents are together for now, they still filed T.R. taxes as separated, and I could have received the same benefits from my mother and gotten my associate's degree this year. But due to the tension between us, they refused to let me use their information to fill out the financial aid, meaning I'd have to pay close to $8,000 or take out loans. I also had to buy a new car. My first car after 4 years finally died out on me. With all of this talk of being kicked out in the air, I don't know if I can afford school with a rent payment and a car payment, and I feel like deferred student loans will only make my problems prolonged. On top of all of this, with my parents and my living situation, my mother had a breakdown the other day over my sisters calling my dad asking him to bring home food so they can eat. While I do what I can for them, I can't afford to feed them. So they had to ask my dad to bring home food. This upset my mother because it made her look bad. Like I said, she's only worried about her image and not her kids' health. This caused her to scream at them as loud and angrily as she could. While they did this, my girlfriend picked me up so I could pick up my new car from the dealership, as it had to have a repair. On my drive home, my sister called me crying because my mother was screaming at her so badly. Once I got home, I stepped in at this point and defended them. She took their phones from them and told them to cancel all their plans because she wasn't letting them leave, one of which was waiting for her ride to show up. I told her that she was being crazy, and that if she could give me a real reason I would leave her alone, but she just kept screaming nonsense that everyone hates her and is out to get her. It ended with me going out to my girlfriend's car, who drove over after the dealership to say goodbye to me, but ended up staying because I told her what was happening on the drive back to my house. She heard all of the commotion from outside. My sisters then ran out of the house and to me asking me to take them somewhere. My mom followed soon after, manically yelling at them to get back into the house. At this point I called my father, who was at work. I told him what was going on and that he needed to get here and fast, but before I could finish, my mom did something unthinkable. She walked up to my sweet girlfriend and got in her face and started screaming as she said, "I don't know why it is you hate me, but I have been nothing but nice to you." She was very loud, in her face, and angry with what she said. We all stood there shocked and my mom ran back inside. Moments later I followed her in as I told her, "I don't know what makes you think you have the right to talk to her like that, but whatever relationship you think we have is done. I am no longer your son," as I went back outside to comfort my girlfriend, who was visible shaking and shocked. We spent the rest of the day at her place with my sisters as I comforted her and explained to her parents what happened. Now it's been a few days and my mothers and father are acting like nothing happened and everything is fine. With all of this said, am I the for wanting to cut my parents out of my life when I move out?